Hey everybody, this is Adam B. Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin. We had so many new show submissions for the contest, we've opted to create a page where you can listen to all of them at your own pace. Visit letstalkbitcoin.com/contest to peruse the entire set, and feel free to vote for more than one. We'll be selecting multiple shows to join the network in Q1. Enjoy the show, and remember to vote at letstalkbitcoin.com/contest.
Hello, this is Guy and James, and welcome to Bitcoin Sandwich.
Today is December
18th.
On Wednesday. Price of Bitcoin is under $600 due to some negative news out of China.
Chinese.
Yes. Full of bad news. Earlier in the week, they had announced that China will not allow goods and services to be sold and paid for by Bitcoin. And today they said that Bitcoin exchanges into China could no longer accept renminbi, which I guess is the Chinese currency.
Yeah, or yuan or yen or, I don't know, make up your mind.
Yes.
Come on.
Renminbi. I like
renminbi. They just did it to confuse Westerners, I'm sure.
So initially it was that you couldn't use Bitcoin for goods and services, and now it seems they're trying to hinder some of these exchanges' ability to convert into Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, evidently with the Western culture creeping into the Chinese, the government's trying to keep them from buying candy bars with Bitcoin because nobody wants their population to get fat, I guess.
Yeah.
They're fat shaming their population by not allowing them to buy candy bars with Bitcoin.
I don't know if that's the issue with candy bar, but it seems that China is a big driving force in the change in the price of Bitcoin and kind of the instability.
Yeah, they drove it up, buying a whole lot of it for over about 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's strange to think that one of the most protected and isolated countries allows such a free moving currency, and I guess the party could only last so long.
Right, and you got to wonder why China's got this about face on Bitcoin. I think there's a lot of different reasons. You could have, is China purposely crashing Bitcoin to buy a whole lot of it? Is it a legitimate concern that the Chinese government has that it's going to be used for illicit purposes? But I think you have to ultimately look and see what do they stand to lose or stand to gain from their actions. And a communist, tyrannical government that likes to control their people, the one thing that they cannot lose control of is their people's money. And the Chinese culture has for a long time had a history of trying to get their money out of China and not being able to do it. I read a story where they talked about that the wealthy Chinese would buy these Macau gaming tokens, and they would buy as many of them as they could get off the black market, and then they would go to Macau and exchange those for, some other currency, Macau's money, I'm not sure what it is, and deposit it in a Macau bank. And then from that bank, then they can transfer their money anywhere in the world. Well, Bitcoin saves a whole lot of trouble there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's China's big focus has been on keeping the price of the renminbi or their currency down so that they're able to export to the U.S. and to Europe and keep trade open. And if their currency gains too much value, there will be a trade imbalance. And China just does not have the buying power within its country to support the amount of production that it does.
Yeah, capitalism. Let your people free.
Well, capitalism has to come in slowly. When you you can't go straight from communism to capitalism. There's got to be a transition.
Might get a little crazy. Yeah, traditionally the Chinese are savers, and you think that the average Chinese person would love to take their renminbi or yen or yuan or whatever it is and take it somewhere that's going to be able to be used for what they want, when they want. Can you imagine a political faction that's highly funded within China gets a whole lot of Bitcoin? What could happen? I mean, you're talking about revolutionary change on the scale that could change the world.
Yeah.
Which, Bitcoin sure might be able to change the world.
But if China dries up, a new market will open up for Bitcoin. It doesn't worry me at all, this movement in price. I think that Bitcoin is a good idea. In fact, it's a great idea, and that great ideas don't change. There'll be ebb and flow to it. And if you look at the price of Bitcoin compared to the beginning of the year, even back into March or April, it's increased leaps and bounds, but it just can't maintain those high prices at this point yet. But it'll get there.
Yeah, and it may, and eventually Bitcoin should find a price that's fairly stable, a range anyway. Otherwise, it's never going to be anything but a commodity for people to trade back and forth, and maybe a store of value. But it's pretty scary to me that a country can just put out 2 press releases and drop the price 50%. I mean, it's lower than 50% of its high value, which is around over $1,200.
Yeah.
So
there's still not a lot of people know about Bitcoin.
That's true.
In both China and the U.S. and worldwide, it doesn't have a lot of exposure. People aren't putting a lot of money into it.
Yeah, I talked to a reporter for a major U.S. newspaper that said, "What's Bitcoin?" and then hung up on me. So, yeah, not everybody knows what it is. Some of my smartest friends just look at me like I'm crazy and go back to doing the whole rest of their life on their computers, but, not their money. Their money has to be backed by some gold, fictitious gold in a fort somewhere.
I wish my money was backed by gold.
Yes, let me tell you.
Anymore. And I think, in this boom and bust cycle, I think in February, you're going to see big growth out of Bitcoin.
Another thing about the oppressive governments cracking down on their people, I heard a podcast recently that talked about Argentina and how their currency is just completely shot, and it leaves their people stuck in Argentina, not able to go anywhere or buy goods and services from other countries because their money is worth next to nothing. And the government evidently may be keeping it that way in order to maintain control over their people. I wonder what other governments in the future are going to come out and have problems with Bitcoin because of that fact.
I think Bitcoin's biggest advantages are going to be to some of the poorest people in the world, that it will allow them to freely move money for next to no fees and be able to transfer money internationally. When people, in the family go overseas in order to earn more money in a first world country, the ability to send money back, it will do great things for those home countries.
Kind of takes away borders. So a lot of people think the world should be going that direction anyway. Why do we need these individual governments? And, I'm against you because there's a body of water between us and we look a little different. I talk a little different, or, people are all the same, yet we're divided. And Bitcoin is an evolutionary thing, I believe, that for this planet to go where people want this planet to be.
I think it's an evolution of the internet. I think the internet's bringing that and closing down borders and opening up minds and seeing people in different ways, and that we don't need our governments to talk for us. We can speak for ourselves. Speaking
of conspiracies, one of the funner ones that I've heard recently was that, so you're saying Bitcoin, internet-based, you mean like a one world currency? What's the logo for that one world currency? 666? I don't know. It could be the end of the world. Maybe Satoshi Nakamoto is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a pretty interesting theory. I don't subscribe to it myself, but it definitely has got a few people holding their Bibles when they're going to sleep at night.
You're definitely one for the theories. Hopefully, Bitcoin will start to stabilize after this China bubble, and the Chinese government will be able to figure out which direction they're going to take Bitcoin in the future.
And hopefully they don't give the U.S. government any ideas of trying to clamp down on us. So, I think it's something temporary, and I think there's no reason to be negative about Bitcoin. You were telling me that on Reddit, the top post on Reddit right now is a 1-800 number to a suicide hotline.
Yeah.
So let's not go that far, guys.
No.
Let's not go that far. James, I was thinking, folks listening to us talk about Bitcoin all this time, they might want to know how we got involved with Bitcoin and why we'd even want to be talking about it in the first place. So let's start with you, James McDonald. How did you get into find out about Bitcoin, and why are you so interested in it?
Well, I, like a lot of people in Bitcoin, heard about it earlier on and thought it was a great idea, but didn't actually purchase any Bitcoin or start mining any Bitcoin until earlier on in this year. I think it's got a lot of potential. When I read Nakamoto's white paper, I was really impressed and thought that it had a lot of potential and still do. I think I've been looking for something to just change our outlook on money. Right now, as far as with fiat, there's no motivation to save money. There's no motivation to not take out loans and go into debt, as our currency is devalued.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't provide a lot of security for the future, potential retirement, when the U.S. government and a lot of other countries just can willy-nilly just print money. So I think it's really exciting times with Bitcoin and other alt currencies too.
So are you involved with any companies so far? Have you invested any money into Bitcoin? Do you own any Bitcoin?
Yeah, I've invested some money in Bitcoin. I'm involved in a mining group that mines Bitcoin. I'm involved with a trading company that does some arbitrage and some alt currencies. And
so there's a lot of mining companies out there. Which one have you given your money to?
I'm actually mining with a group called DZ Miner. They're on BitcoinTalk.com, and I've done really well with them. They're really knowledgeable. I don't know nearly enough about the mining side. I'm trying to stay out of it. I'm more involved in the financial and trading side of things. What about you, Guy?
Well, as you can probably tell by listening to me, I'm just a country boy from the South. And I got involved with Bitcoin by making fun of all of my friends for talking about it incessantly. For some reason, I'm friends with a whole lot of folks that love computers, and as much as I love them, for random reasons, Bitcoin has turned out to be really interesting, and I shouldn't have put my nose up to it at first, but it's begun to consume my life. As my best friends and you, James, and other folks I know are all involved in it, and actually. For a living, I work for an oil and gas company called Balanced Energy, and we have now taken 2 different sets of investments from people in Bitcoin. So people are actually buying the chance to get some barrels of oil with Bitcoin. So, I'm making every Texas boy proud and bringing it back to oil.
That's got to be a first.
It should be a first. I'm not really certain about that, but.
And didn't you have a friend who owed you some money?
I did. I haven't bought Bitcoin, but I was owed some money, and I got it in the form of a Bitcoin payment. So I've done all right. I made a little extra cash on top of that money that he owed me. So I think I got the Bitcoin when it was $500. When he actually by the time he actually transferred it to me, it was worth $850. And now it's back down to $500. But that's okay. I'm sure I'm still doing all right.
It's all a journey.
And let me tell you, I like those coins. I want to get some. I want to get my own personalized Bitcoin.
You're talking about ones
a minted coin. Yes, a minted coin made out of silver or gold or copper, whatever. I don't really think it matters what it's made out of. People always talk about secure wallets. I had an idea you can make your ingoing bit stamp on one ring and have your outgoing bit stamp on another ring, and maybe have little lids on them or something that you can cover them up so people can't scan them while you're walking by. But, I don't know. Sounds interesting.
You'd have a lot of rich Bitcoin billionaires that would have fingers cut off, I think.
Well, that's true. Have it locked to your genetic code, so it has to be on your finger, and then people will start cutting fingers off for sure. They'll go all James Bond on it.
Yeah.
For enough Bitcoin. All right, guys. So for the second half of our session here, we want to bring in, and we want to do this every time, bring in experts from the Bitcoin field, people that know more about it than we do. Because let me tell you, James, I am not a technological expert, nor will I ever be. And if I was, I might not admit it.
Yeah.
But so for our first guest, because again, we want to learn these things just as much as you do. For our first guest, we're going to have a guy. His name is Jonathan Cohn. He is involved in oil and gas business as well as I am, but now he's also involved in a number of different businesses in the Bitcoin field, from mining to arbitrage to ATMs, you name it. So we're going to bring him in, and we're going to ask him a few questions, and we're going to let you listen in.
Great.
So, James, how do you eat a Bitcoin sandwich?
I don't know, Guy. How?
One bite at a time. Hi, and welcome back to Bitcoin Sandwich. As promised, we are here with Jonathan Cohn, CEO and founder of Cipher Enterprises, also current Vice President of Balanced Energy, and the lone, investor in our podcast here, because he is the one that gave us the Rock Band microphone that we are currently recording this on.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, please tell us how you got into Bitcoin madness.
Well, thanks for having me first. And I guess the first time I heard about Bitcoin was back in 2009. Just keeping on the news, saw it, thought probably video game currency, didn't really think much of it. Later, had some friends try to talk me into investing in it. Kind of, how could you know more than me about computers? Didn't really listen.
Now, why is that people would think you know a whole lot about computers?
I've just been in tech for a long time. I've basically been in and around the computer industry since about '88. Wrote my first software when I was 9 years old, and have been working in that industry since.
All right. So what finally hooked you with Bitcoin?
So I had a friend ask me about doing a little mining, not really going in and buying stuff, considering that I've built computers before. Got all the way to ordering all the stuff on Amazon, and then got in trouble with the wife. Had to cancel all the orders. So then I had to find an alternate way of getting into this machine without going through Amazon. And so got on, did some more research, found DZ Miners Co-op, and basically talked to a few friends. We got in it together, and we went ahead with purchasing some shares from the co-op.
All right. So
What does Bitcoin mean to you now?
The concept of Bitcoin for me is kind of similar to the IP protocol. It's basically a way of giving addresses and then tracking those addresses through a public ledger. I think that's really, really interesting, from a transfer of equity, whether it's fiat or whether it be shares in, a company or whatever. I think that's a really cool idea. And then from a currency standpoint, for me, it's a very libertarian, idealistic currency. No centralized control, 24-hour market, and almost instantaneous processing. So all those things are really interesting to me in that regard.
So, when you said libertarian currency and no control, I think I've known you for a long time, Jonathan, and your history, where you came from, is a country that would possibly stand to benefit from a worldwide currency that could not be controlled by the government. Why don't you talk about where you were born?
So I'm originally from Venezuela, and in Venezuela for the longest time there's been two markets for the dollar. There's the Venezuelan currency market for it, and then there's the black market for it. Thanks to Hugo Chavez back in, I want to say, 6 or 7, we ended up getting a third market. He changed the Bolivar to Bolivar Fuerte, and then the black Bolivar, which is where the dollars are purchased off of the government's ledger. That has basically caused hyperinflation. It's caused huge poor versus rich divides, and it's also basically caused a mass exodus of talent and educated people from the government and the country.
Is there you still have family in Venezuela, right? From talking to them, what is the interest level in a country like Venezuela in Bitcoin?
Not much. They really don't know much about it. They basically want to just focus on their day-to-day. They're a little more worried about what's going on with the government and elections and things like that. about a month ago, they had the military breaking into electronic stores. So that'll tend to freak you out enough to not want to pay attention to Bitcoin.
Yeah, maybe the Venezuelan military is trying to mine
Awesome.
Bitcoin. Also in South America, Bitcoin is attempting to play a large role in Argentina. They have a suppressed currency with like I like to call, a tyrannical government. And, they see Bitcoin as a chance for a way out. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what all you're involved in and as far as the Bitcoin business is. You have the unique ability to do a whole lot of things at once. And just tell us a little bit about what all's going on in your Bitcoin world.
So Cypher was initially formed to be the parent company for an Bitcoin ATM servicing company. We'd initially thought about purchasing Bitcoin ATMs from RoboCoin. That didn't really pan out. Then we basically came up with the idea of servicing companies or individuals that wanted to purchase those ATMs and wanted to not deal with the day-to-day legwork, that sort of stuff. They just wanted to buy it and pay somebody to run it. As that process kind of developed, we ended up not being able to do it because RoboCoin and some of the other manufacturers kept changing what their end terms for their servicing and licensing agreements were on the machines, which really kept us in limbo as far as what we could charge. And Bitcoin being Bitcoin, everything else started just, speeding out of control around it. And we ended up forming a company that does day trading and arbitrage on the Bitcoin market, not only for Bitcoin, but for alternate currencies and fiat. And we've also been able to set up a couple of other side ventures, some of which include contract mining, escrow services for mining hardware, physical Bitcoin generation, and also, that's pretty much it right there.
So as far as the Bitcoin ATMs, I know we've seen one up in Canada and a few over in Europe. How far away do you think we are from seeing one in the U.S.?
So I think the two main companies out there, one's out of Canada, that's RoboCoin. There is another one that is escaping me right now, but it's only a one-way system. It does not do two-way transactions. That one is the one that's being deployed in Europe right now.
Well, let me back up real fast. Just explain what the ATMs would ideally do.
So RoboCoin, which is the first two-way ATM, would technically allow you to deposit and withdraw from your Bitcoin wallet using their ATM. It'll go actually on the market and purchase coin at market value and deliver that coin to you via printed QR code or scanned QR code on the screen. The other one will not do that. It will only allow you to pull money out.
Those are like a Bitcoin vending machine where you fill it up with Bitcoin, and once people have purchased all the Bitcoin in the machine, it's no longer functioning, or it's not able to sell any more Bitcoin.
Right, you'd have to fill it again, exactly. So those are the two flavors of ATMs that we've dealt with so far. We think that the two-way system is probably the one that's going to win out. But ultimately, what's really going to be needed is a hybrid system that will do an ATM, regular fiat ATM, and a Bitcoin, possibly even alternate coin ATM. I think that ultimately the future is going to be an ATM that will allow you to purchase any coin and any fiat. The feasibility of that is probably a little bit far away because you need to get the ATM companies involved. But I think it's going to happen.
All right, this is one of my favorite things to talk about with Bitcoin, how I gauge its real life impact on. When do you think I'll be able to go to the store and buy a candy bar with Bitcoin?
Wow, that's a good question. So a candy bar has a specific set of problems for Bitcoin.
It's got a set value.
It's got a very low set value.
Right.
Bitcoin has a very high set value right now. So if I were to give you a Bitcoin for your candy bar, it will take you anywhere from, for a non-secure confirmation, 10 minutes to as much as 6 hours to get fully confirmed on your transaction. So as a store, you really don't want to be doing tons of sales of small items that could potentially not go through, where you have to wait 6 hours to make sure that your money is in hand. So Bitcoin may not be the solution for your candy bar. You may go with Bitcoin to this ATM machine and get you some Litecoin in an alternate wallet or some dollars, and you'll buy your candy bar with those alternate coins that are designed for short, small term transactions, or fiat.
So if I get my candy bar online, if I send Bitcoin to that address, I could get instant verification, and they could delay shipping my candy bar until they get verification of that Bitcoin.
Yeah, there are other services as well that they'll take that risk for you. So they will allow you to pay in Bitcoin, and they will deal with the vendor directly. So the vendor doesn't have to worry about that verification. They basically are taking the risk for the vendor.
So do you think there's room for payment processors to speed up these transaction times?
Well, I think that there are currently payment processors that are doing that. BitPay is one of them. I believe they've actually crossed the PayPal, not their volume of trades, of transactions, but definitely the amount in the transactions has already been eclipsed from PayPal by BitPay. And they are right now the name in payment processing in the Bitcoin world. You can pay through Bitcoin or USD through their shopping cart, and then you can choose what fiat or Bitcoin you would like deposited in your account.
And there's a lot of vendors that are receiving Bitcoin, but they're not actually receiving the Bitcoin. It's instantly getting converted into fiat, and there's no real difference for them from receiving Bitcoin or receiving a credit card transaction.
Right now, the exchange rate that they're getting is not maybe the best. Companies like BitPay, what they'll do is they'll average out several other exchanges, lower exchanges than let's say, for example, Mt. Gox, which has the highest price. And then they'll give you that lower price. So they're in essence getting the R between you and the purchase.
Well, John, that's all really interesting. We, Bitcoin's dropped recently. China says they don't like it. I can't buy a candy bar. I'm starting to get concerned. And what I want to know from you is, what do you see the future of Bitcoin being?
I'm going to make an analogy to music, because I think music was the first place that really got disrupted by technology with the MP3 and with Napster and all that. And Bitcoin may be our Napster of the times. And, it's the first one on the market. It's the big name in town. It's the one that's going to take all the lessons that are to be learned. But the technology behind it, the infrastructure behind it, the MP3 of it, if you will, that's not going away. Technology is one of those things that once it finds a foothold, it only goes forward with that foothold. And I think that the infrastructure that's being set up to be able to move funds freely through the internet, the ability for anyone in the world to have a bank account by solely having access to the internet, and the ability to have a public ledger where people can, one proposal is that Bitcoin is anonymous, but the other side of that coin is if you know where the transaction was done, that transaction is now public. It's tied. You can actually see that happening in any of the blockchains that you want to pull down all over the world. So, yes, it is a way of being anonymous. Yes, it is a way of stepping into something new as far as the technology, but I think it's something that's going to allow, like the internet, the freedom and flow of ideas and information into new sectors and maybe new ways of doing business, new ways of doing government. I think it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. We're going to finish up here. I got one last question. All three of us are going to answer it. And Jonathan, what is your favorite altcoin so far? Favorite altcoin name.
Favorite altcoin name.
I know my favorite altcoin is a hobo nickel.
And the hobo nickel.
I own one hobo nickel.
All right.
I don't think I've really thought about this too much. Just out of the gut, I would say probably Mastercoin because it just sounds nice.
All right. Okay. I got a few jokes there, but I'm not going to go there right now. And, being from Texas, my favorite coin will always be the barbecue coin. All right, guys. Well, that's it for Bitcoin Sandwich. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed the show you just listened to, visit letstalkbitcoin.com/contest and send 0.1 millibit or 0.0001 Bitcoin to the address indicated for that show. Thanks for helping.